microphone is on, is it? Oh, now it is. All right. My name is Annie Foerster, and I'm minister to this congregation. And with me this morning is Brian Skinner, president of the Board of Trustees. It's been busy around here, Brian, and I see your name on a lot of emails coming across my screen. What's going on? I'm looking forward. It's one of my favorite events of the year. I, of course, was at the board meeting as well, and I remember good news items like the completion of the bathroom in Jagger's Parlor, yay! And the receipt of the music grant we applied for from North Texas UU Churches organization. And wasn't there something about a new website?
And to attend the congregation meeting on the 21st, either in person or on Zoom.
Now, that's an important meeting. We'll be electing new representatives to the board at that time, too. I don't think we have all the candidates to stand for that honor, so if you're interested in serving on the board, let me know or contact Michael Zapata, chair of the nominating committee. What else, Brian?
Well, we talked about what we were going to do when you leave in June.
Yeah.
We have to start, I know, we have to start looking for a new minister that will be a fit for this congregation. I'm in touch with the Southern Region office, and you were going to contact Bright Divinity
Right.
to see if there had any Unitarian Universalists studying there.
It's never too soon to start looking. Let me tell you, some lucky person is out there that will be thrilled to be working with this congregation as I have been. Someone with new energy and new ideas. It's going to be wonderful.
And speaking of energy, we are looking for people to serve on several committees.
Always.
Let us know where your interests lie. The committee chairs are meeting this afternoon at the fall council meeting. If you want to sit in, see what's going on, feel free to do so.
Yes, and also I might add, those of you who are planning to attend that committee meeting, there will be lunch served, so after the regular coffee and conversation, show up in Coleman Hall at about 12:30 and we'll feed you before that meeting. And thanks, Brian, for the recap. But now it's time to start our service with music from the dancing fingertips of Misha Bresnev, a wonderful Scott Joplin piece. could you all sit so still? I wanted to dance. Our call to worship this morning is from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. It's one of the oldest written documents of any of the world's religions, and its wisdom is still relevant today. Now, as a person is like this or that, according as he acts and according as he behaves, so will he be. A man of good acts will become good, a woman of bad acts, bad. They become pure by pure deeds, but bad by bad deeds.
And here they say that a person consists of desires, and as is his desire, so is his will. And as is her will, so is her deed. And whatever deeds they do, that they will reap.
We light our chalice this morning so that we might have sight and sense of the deeds we do. Brian, would you light the chalice for us? And the desires we project, may they be seen in the light of this flame as good deeds and pure desires. Intent is not sufficient, for, says a modern Buddha, a person who presses an electric light switch will succeed on turning on the light, even if he happens to be under the impression that he is switching on the radio. Please join us in singing number 1031 in the green hymnal, Filled with Loving Kindness. And you have? I'll share. We do 3 verses. May we filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. And please remain standing and join me, excuse me, for our affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. Please be seated. And Brian, you can sit down for a while, yeah. Sometimes, when I'm putting together the worship service, the best lines that pass through my head don't make it into the script. This week I was puzzled. As I puzzled over the question to start your thinking on the topic, the first thing that popped in my head is this. They are probably asking the question, why is Annie pushing Buddha at us? Really, part 3? Well, I can answer that question right now. When we map the curricula for the youth and children, we always include modules about other world religions because we want our children to have an understanding of all faiths and why they are better for some people than ours would be. We want them not to belittle any faith that doesn't agree with their own, and we want them to be aware of the many ways there are of viewing the world. Unfortunately, we don't offer that same insight to our adult members, or when we do, you don't always take advantage of it. So I believe it is part of my job to bring that awareness to you. There may even be a Buddha Part 4 later in the spring. I don't know. And I might look at Islam or Shintoism or Confucianism in the near future. I will not let you believe we are the center of all faiths or that we have all the answers. We do have some darn good questions, however. And my question for you to ask yourself this morning is this: where should we seek answers to the question of how to live well, causing no harm to others, and finding satisfaction in what we have done? And unlike most Sundays, I'll give you the answer up front. Everywhere. Everywhere. And when you find an answer, then ask another question. Our story for all ages this morning was written by James Whitcomb Riley. You remember in the musical Anna and the King of Siam, Anna has come to be governess to the king's children, and she chastises him for teaching them that strangers are always wrong because they don't believe as he believes. And she sings the song, "They have to be carefully taught," meaning they aren't naturally racist or mistrusting until someone teaches them to be that way. And all societies bent on teaching their children to live in acceptable ways, in the ways of their ancestors, use a variety of methods to teach them how to be good and the proper way to think in the society in which they will live. Fairy tales, for instance, clearly outline the difference between good and bad, acceptable and unacceptable. Boy, most of the early ones were gruesome and gory, scaring children into their best behavior. One of my favorites in this genre is James Whitcomb Riley's poem, Little Orphan Annie, which uses goblins to frighten children into being good. And goblins are, I think, very apt in this season just before Halloween. So be good or be afraid. And Brian's going to read the story for all ages.
To our house to stay and wash the cups and saucers up and brush the crumbs away and shoo the chickens off the porch and dust the hearth and sweep and make the fire and bake the bread and earn her board and keep. And all us other children, when the supper things is done, we sit around the kitchen fire and has the mostest fun, a-listening to the witch tales that Annie tells about and the goblins that get you if you don't watch out. Once there was a little boy, wouldn't say his prayers, so when he went to bed at night, up away the stairs, his mammy heard him holler and his daddy heard him bawl. And when they turned the covers down, he wasn't there at all. And they seeked him in the rafter room and cubbyhole and press, and seeked him up the chimbley flue and everywheres, I guess. But all they ever found was this, his pants and roundabout. And the goblins will get you if you don't watch out. And one time, a little girl let all us laugh and grin and make fun of everyone and all her blood and kin. And once when there was company and old folks was there, she mocked 'em and shocked 'em and said she didn't care. And this as she kicked her heels and turned and run and hide, there was two great big black things a-standing by her side. And they snatched her through the ceiling, for she knowed what she was about. And the goblins will get you if you don't watch out. And little orphan Danny says, when the blaze is blue and the lamp wick sputters and the wind goes woo, and you hear the crickets quit and the moon is gray and the lightning bugs is dew and all squenched away, you better mind your parents and your teachers, fond and dear, and cherish them and loves you and dry orphan's tear. and help the poor and needy ones that clusters all about, ere the goblins will get you if you don't watch out. Do we have a story? Do we have a light on leadership team?
No, you're next. You're up on the offertory.
When was the last time you went hungry because you could not afford to buy food? When was the last time you wore clothing that needed mending, needed washing, didn't fit you because you could not afford to buy new? When was the last time you slept in your car or under a bridge? When was the last time you couldn't feed your beloved pet? This morning, as we will continue to do this season, we will share our plate with Eastside Community Assistance, an organization that supports the people in this area who answer my questions with now or recently. If you are writing a check for your pledge payment, please mark it as such. Any unmarked funds will be shared with Eastside. As the greeters pass among you, please be generous.
Thank you, Misha. Buddhism fascinates me because I think it's one of the most accessible religious faiths, offering the most rational responses to the questions of right living. It has its challenges, mostly in the rituals surrounding its practice. And unlike our 7 principles, some of the precepts need a little explaining, a little translation, if you will, to help you understand what they might mean to you and, by extension, the rest of creation. Last time I spoke about thinking like a Buddha, I explained the 4 noble truths. You might remember all life is suffering or disappointment, depending on how you translate it, but not all the time. But mostly it's there. There's reason for the suffering. You yourself can make the suffering cease. And 4, there is a way to do that called the Eightfold Path. Well, the paths consist of precepts which you might practice. And practice is the operative word in Buddhism because no one expects you to get it right the first time. You forgive yourself when you misstep and you begin again. We reviewed 4 of these precepts last time: right understanding, insight into the true nature of reality, right intentions, the unselfish desire to realize enlightenment, right speech, using your words with compassion, and right action, using ethical conduct to manifest your compassion. Well, there's a lifetime of practice right there, but there are 4 more to round them out, and I'll go through them quickly. Right livelihood isn't just about making a sufficient salary to support yourself and your family. It means being aware that the output of your efforts are not harmful to others and within the realm of accepted ethics. I mean, what could be a better occupation than being a teacher of youth, you might ask? But as a teacher, are you aware that the Texas Board of Education slants its textbook material so as not to admit to institutions of white supremacy? And are you speaking up against that? See, right livelihood is not as easy as it sounds, and every job could be questioned that way. Right effort is about cultivating wholesome qualities in yourself and releasing unwholesome qualities. Oh, to put it more simply, it's good habits versus bad habits. And the obvious bad habits leap to mind. Drinking too much, swearing in public, shopping to relieve boredom. But when you rid yourself of those, you will begin to see less obvious qualities that need correction, like perhaps gossiping or laziness, or using words like hate when you mean something isn't to your satisfaction. The best way to look at right effort is to think of always being a role model you would want your children or anyone else to emulate. Right mindfulness is about whole body and mind awareness. This is where living in the moment comes in. This is where paying attention moves center stage. This is, let me show you. Brian, would you mind being part of this demonstration? Would you walk across the chancel up to this end and just go up there and stand for a minute? Okay, turn around and walk behind me to the other end of the chancel. Okay, come back and sit down in your chair. Good, you did very well. Okay, now close your eyes, and I'm going to ask you some questions. What foot did you start your walk on?
Probably my left.
But you're not sure.
Not totally sure.
Okay, that's all right. What color is Misha's shirt this morning?
Brown.
No. Was the chalice still lit when you walked by?
Yes.
You sure? Okay, all right. How did you feel while you were walking?
Watched.
Okay, you'll be happy to know that you are normal unless you were planning to take up Buddhist mindfulness practice right this moment. You can open your eyes now. See, most of us don't realize where our bodies are, much less our minds at any given moment. We live by habits, good and bad. We aren't always aware of where we are, ever mindful. I take my dog on the same walk every morning, and every once in a while I go, oh, look, we're here at this corner already. How did we get here? I don't know. I mean, we're doing something, but I wasn't there. So the final precept is right concentration, the practice that will make all the rest possible. And it includes a meditation practice or some other dedicated, concentrated practice. So Buddha said relief from suffering is possible, but he never said it was easy. It's the work of a lifetime. But how better to spend your lifetime than improving it? But wait until I tell you what comes next. In the meantime, let us sing of our life as it is now. Hymn number 128, For All That Is Our Life. for reading.
The
Bodhisattva.
Thank you, Bodhisattva of
Sorry.
compassion, John Blowfield. No lover of fair visions, born of mind and caught by the painter's brush or carver's hand, can well resist Kuan Yin's enchantment. No follower of the way beyond the hidden gate, but longs to read the secret reflected in her eyes, to know what lies behind her enigmatic smile. Whence rose that shining being, divine embodiment of pure compassion? Whence came faith in Kuan Yin's power to ferry sentient beings across samsara's ocean? Where did she first appear, and how acquire her mellifluous name, Kuan Shi Yin, hearer of cries?
Thanks. I call this part Saints, Bodhisattvas, and Good Guys. You can sit down. When I was in seminary near the campus of the University of Chicago, we were allowed to take classes at any of the other seminaries in the area, Presbyterian, Methodist, Lutheran, or Catholic, as well as at the university itself, where Hindu and Buddhist classes were taught alongside Christian and Jewish. And I took full advantage of this liberty, sampling histories and ethics from various religious points of view. A group of us from the Unitarian Universalist Seminary took a class in liberation theology at the Catholic Theological Union. A number of monks had come in from their various postings around the world where they had been living in areas where this topic was vital to everyday lives. And they were as curious about us as we were about them, and the discussions we had were lively and productive. And after the last class, the monks and the professors threw us a tea party to thank us for attending the school and adding our perspectives to the discussion. It was really the first time we had time to have personal discussions with these colleagues, and the conversation was even livelier than it had been in class. And then one monk asked us, do you have, as we do, saints in your religion? And there was a sudden pause in the conversation as we looked from one to the other for clues as to how we should answer this awkward question. And then one of the seniors among us, who had experienced uncomfortable questions like this between faiths before, spoke up. "We do," he said, as I wondered to myself why I hadn't heard about this before. "Only we simply call them the good guys." Well, the answer was accepted with great nodding of heads. A potential religious crisis was averted, and the conversation continued until the tea ran out. It turns out my colleague was right on the mark. All faith systems have good guys. How they name them is irrelevant. Buddha, of course, is a good guy. When anyone, you or I or anyone who has succeeded in the practices, reaches Bodhi or enlightenment, nirvana is the prize and escape from the wheel of life. But there is another layer of good guys, even more saintly than Buddha, and they are the Bodhisattvas. Now, Bodhisattvas are those who have been welcomed into nirvana and choose not to stay. They go voluntarily back into life to help others reach understanding and enlightenment, to comfort those who are not yet on the path. In the literature of Buddhism, there are 8 famous bodhisattvas who exemplify Gautama's foremost qualities after he attained Buddhahood. I'm not going to burden you with the names of all 8, which are difficult to pronounce, and you won't remember them anyway because I never do. But the Buddha qualities specialized in by these exemplary bodhisattvas are these: Buddha's wisdom, Buddha's compassion, Buddha's power, his activities, his merit, his qualities, his blessings, and his aspirations. Now, if you were to study Buddhism, you would learn each of their histories and their successes, so that you might follow in their footsteps. Of all of these, my favorite bodhisattva is Kuan Yin, the bodhisattva of compassion. This is Kuan Yin, and so is this, and so is this. Let me tell you of her deeds, her beauty, and her fame. Kuan Shi Yin is her full name, meaning she who hearkens to the cries of the world. That is a translation of her Sanskrit name, Avalokita. She is revered in Korea and Japan and China, attaining the stature for some of a goddess. She was introduced in China during the 1st century of the Common Era, where her fame traveled to Korea and then on to Japan. Avalokita was first known as a man because all of the Bodhisattvas were male at that time. But her powers are so infinite, she was able to take whatever guise was necessary to do her work. In some places, she is still recognized as male, in some of no gender, but more commonly as a female. In his book, Bodhisattvas of Compassion, John Blofeld describes a typical encounter with worshippers of Kuan Yin. Blofeld was passing by a temple devoted to the goddess. I think he was in Japan at the time, when a group of boat women came hurrying down the lane and entered the temple. He followed them. They were not wealthy or prominent people. They were dressed in plain black cloth and bamboo hats. They sank to their knees and bowed 3 times to the statue of Kuan Yin. Soon, he wrote in his book, they rose from their knees except for one young girl in an advanced state of pregnancy who remained with her face to the floor cushion. The others, lighting incense sticks and candles taken from a table near the door, the rest chanted a brief and far from tuneful melody, and then repeated their bows, and then they all hurried away, led by the pregnant woman. The whole performance took maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Well, Blofeld asked his guide what had just occurred, and the man replied, "The young one has happiness in her. The others are her relatives. They came to pray that the child will be a boy." Blofeld asked if she will get a son because of her prayers, and the answer was, "Kuan Yin is kind." The guide went on to further explain that the only thing required of the new mother will be that she return to thank Kuan Yin. And if the child is a girl baby, the mother will know that her child will be destined to a singularly fortunate existence, for the goddess would not deny such a harmless request. So strong is the follower's belief in Kuan Yin's compassion that even if she does not get what she prays for, she will be satisfied. Kuan Yin knows best. Kuan Yin is often depicted holding something in her arms or her hands. There are 42 separate symbols attributed to her, and the artist who creates her image as these were created can choose among them depending upon his or her own experience of the goddess. My own 3 statues, and I have more at home, that I've chosen to bring today have, let me see, which ones are these? This one? No, this one. This one here has a long life vase. That the symbol of the vase is that all is virtuous and loving and a long life. A white lotus is very common in Kuan Yin, signifying the attainment of merit. A rosary, I believe, yes, this one has a rosary here. And that's to call upon the Buddhas of the 10 quarters. There is a Buddha who looks out from every direction, including up and down. So east, west, north, and south, and then the directions in between those, and then up and down. 10 directions. There's a Buddha up there watching. So that they can come swiftly to one's succor or to welcome one to a pure land. A piece of fruit, like this one has in her hand, or a bowl of fruit, is for escaping from pits. Now, I don't know how many people find themselves in pits and if this is physical or mental, so I'm not really clear on that one. I believe this one has something like the 2 hands wrist to wrist with the fingers nearly horizontal and pointing to the right and the left. That's for summoning the Buddhas of the 10 quarters to bestow empowerment and to predict certain success in attaining enlightenment. As a petitioner, one can choose a likeness with the symbols of what one needs most. I don't know why, but I've been intrigued with Kuan Yin since I first discovered her. She has a strong allure to her followers. It is said that you need only picture her in your mind, and she will calm your fears. Call her name, and she will bestow upon you whatever you require. Now, compassion is in itself an admirable trait to me. I think that's what first drew me to her. But the concept of the Bodhisattva, one who would give up the greatest gift in order to help others to achieve it, is compelling in itself. The lives of the saints are stories told to Catholic children to inspire them to good behavior, but many of the ones that I've read are dreary, filled with sorrow and pain. And though I am only an admirer of Buddhism and not a practitioner, I am intrigued with a faith system that would have built into it a plan for giving up what you have worked so hard to attain in order to help someone else find the path to the ultimate goal. I will end this morning's service saying something about the reason behind the unending wheel of life and death and how it got built into the faith and how behavior manifests itself in its inevitability. But for now, every Sunday we come to a time in our service when we celebrate the communion of names and milestones. And there is a book that is kept out in the lobby that you can fill in a story. I noticed that no one wrote any stories this morning, but I do have a list of, you can stop the teleprompter because I'm not reading from it now. And go back to the start. I'm going to read from my list here. I do have a list of some visitors that were here this morning if they came before the service started. I will read your name, and if you wish, please stand and hold your applause until the end. Caleb Cox Seals. Are you here, Caleb? No. Cheyenne Edwards, Jan Ross. I was able to talk with Jan this morning. She came in, and Quinn and Ozzie Rose. They're over there in the back row. Welcome all. Thank you for coming. Okay, you can be seated. Okay, thank you. Carl sent me a note. Carl, you know, is our manager of membership, and he had two things that he wanted me to include in this. Thanks to the musicians of Spectrum Chamber Music for another wonderful performance and for maintaining their 35-year partnership with First Jefferson. And special thanks to Guy Thornton and Patrick Gutierrez for doing a great job streaming the concert, and to David Bindi for his always beautiful staging and decorating of the sanctuary. Brian, would you light our candles please, thank you. And then he said, thanks to everyone who has helped out with donations of snacks and setting up in the library for our new after-service coffee hour. Your efforts have been integral in creating this successful and fun change in our Sunday routine. And then I have a celebration of significant milestone this weekend. Saturday marked the anniversary of the day that I left Cincinnati for good. Today marks a time in which I lived nowhere, being involved in driving swiftly through Kentucky, Tennessee, and Arkansas. And tomorrow will be the 10th anniversary of my being a Fort Worthian. Yes. And I just want to ask you all, when do I get stopped being referred to as a Yankee? Somebody told me, don't hold your breath. The stories that live in this community belong to us all, whether they are spoken aloud or live in our hearts. Let us take a moment to share the silence, to consider what goes on in this beloved community and what belongs to all of us. After a moment of silence, Misha will play a musical interlude. So do as you will, close your eyes, sit back and relax, and let us think of one another. Probably everybody's heard the expression karma, whether you know exactly what it means or not, and I know that most of you have heard the expression that I used to title this part of my service. I couldn't help myself. Karma is a bitch. You know what that means. But not everyone attains enlightenment. Lots of us don't even try. Most don't even know about trying. And the result is, according to the wisdom of the faithful, that we must be born again and again in order to try to do better next time. Not only do we have to start all over from the beginning each time, we don't even get to choose whether or not we come back as human beings. And I understand some men were shocked to learn in the past that they might even have to live their next life as a woman if they mess up this one too badly. Yeah. Buddhism comes out of an even more ancient religion, Hinduism. Siddhartha Gautama now recognizes the Buddha who created the system of the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, lived during the Axial Age, a time when many faith systems were undergoing renovation, being brought up to date to suit a more modern culture. This was about 600 years before the Common Era. Hinduism was already more than 1,000 years old when Buddha began to think about why bad things still happen to good people. It was an amalgam of philosophies brought together through ancient travel routes by people trying to understand what life was all about. Isn't that mainly how most religions began? Times were hard. Most people didn't have a good life. Even those who tried to live ethically, even kindly, were kicked in the teeth by sickness or poverty, or hunger, old age, and ultimately death. Life wasn't fair. But the optimism of humanity won out over and over again. Gods were created. Hinduism had thousands of them to help ease the pain. There either had to be a better place than this life or another chance to do better and get it right, they reasoned. And they chose the latter. There was a certain rhythm to living, you understand. Day to night, summer to winter, satisfaction to hunger, and back again. It was like living on a wheel that just kept spinning around and around. So is it any wonder that when life turned to death, it was assumed it would keep turning until it became life again? There was even hope in that. I could be born rich next time, or beautiful, or happier than I am now. And once that idea became accepted, then the rules could be discovered that would make each succeeding life better and better and better yet. That's how a religion is born. That's how a religion grows. Buddhism gave up all the gods associated with Hinduism, but it kept the wheel of life, and it kept the reason that the wheel kept spinning: karma. Karma was explained in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, written in the 7th century before the Common Era. As you heard in our opening words, its theory was that how a person behaves affects his or her individual life and the lives that will follow it. Cause and effect. Do this, get that. The theory held that good karma produces good effects, while bad karma produces bad effects, be they physical actions or emotional thoughts or moral intent. And here's the kicker. The effect of karma need not be immediate. It can occur years later and even affect future lives. It's the Santa Claus effect. It sees when you're sleeping. It knows when you're awake. It knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake. It makes a certain kind of sense, doesn't it? It explains why bad people often get away with being bad, at least for a while. I'd feel better about certain former presidents if I believed in karma. No names. Karma will get them in the end, I could say. Don't worry about it. And the same holds true of good deeds. You may not get a reward for doing something kind or well-meaning on the day that you do it. It may be that no one even notices. But with karma, you have good effects in the bank. You can count on it. Modern-day interpretations of karma include the practice of building good habits. Psychologists of today, including the last century's Karl Popper and Harold Coward, conclude that habits create the nature of the individual. They also seed our self-perception, which influences how we experience life's events. Both Potter and Coward actually linked karma theory to their suggestion that we really need to work hard to break bad habits, because that's what will get you in the end. In early Buddhism, rebirth is ascribed to a person's cravings or simply to their ignorance about their own actions. It's not a rigid or mechanical process as it was in Hinduism, but a more flexible, fluid, and dynamic business. In this understanding of karma, the effect of a deed is not determined only by the deed itself, but also by the nature of the person who commits the deed and the circumstances in which it is committed. It's not a judgment by God, for Buddhism posits no gods, but a simple outcome of a natural process of cause and effect. The good news is that the result of negative causes can be transformed through faith and spiritual practice. Now, like many ideas in Buddhism, it begins with you, with the individual. It is to me rather akin to religious humanism. You have the power in your own hands to do something about your life. And then, when you get that squared away, here are even more rewards. You can reach out to others and help them with their lives, their karma, their understanding of what life is all about. And you can become a Bodhisattva too, a good guy. You see, the truth is, we didn't arrive with any instructions, nor were the words "made in heaven" stamped on our bottoms when we were born. All of us are simply trying to find our way through what life deals us, good hand or bad hand, blessings or curses. We tend to find a worldview that makes sense, that fits what happens. And when we find one that sort of matches our personalities, we embrace it. Or we become Unitarian Universalists and try to write our own instruction manuals. The point is, there are models out there. We shouldn't discard them out of hand without studying them for something that we might wear, something that fits, that explains why the world is the way it is, and how we can make our own dreams come true. We can look for formulas and how-to manuals where others have thought they found the answers. We can rely on help from someone who has gone before us, either real or imagined. We can say life isn't fair, or we can accept responsibility for our own mistakes. And we can be with others whose journeys look similar to our own. There's a vast array of possibilities and suggestions out there in the world. Some of it even makes sense. In the meantime, be your best self. There are hard times and there are good times. We can only hope in a storm that the winds will soon be still. In fact, we have a hymn to that effect in our hymnal. Please stand as you're willing and able and join us in number 83, Winds Be Still. Gautama Buddha said, can you roll the teleprompter? Thank you. Let us overcome violence by gentleness. Let us overcome evil by good. Let us overcome the miserly by liberality. Let us overcome the liar by truth. So may it be in all our lives. Please join us for coffee and conversation in the library. If someone will open the wall, we may go in and have some refreshments. And the council will have lunch served in half an hour from now.